Sunrise Extra Wednesday.
Ah, yes.
We are talking look at how relaxed Joe is. I love that.
He's got his little vest on.
Sitting down.
It's a sweater. It's a sweater.
Oh, it's a sweater. Our bad, Joe. You look so relaxed. I love it. With a beautiful day in the background. Okay, Joe's going to help us because we're talking about high school sports. What should happen, right? So Washington made the decision last night that they're it's very confusing. You could read like the minutia details on our website, but essentially they're kind of flip-flopping what are traditionally fall sports. You think like football, volleyball, what else is there? Soccer. That stuff's going to start in March. Okay. The stuff that normally starts in March, spring sports, tennis, what else? Cross country, golf, all those solo like outdoor stuff, baseball. That's going to start in September. So they're switching them. Winter sports, those are staying unchanged. They're going to start in January instead of December. California is doing no sports until at least January, and then they'll see. Oregon about to make a decision. Oh, hi, Brenda.
Hey.
We'll figure it out. It's okay. Oregon going to make a decision before Friday on what happens with high school sports. So what do you guys think? We were just talking about wrestling, because wrestling is a winter sport and supposedly it's unchanged. How do you wrestle in the time of COVID? Exactly. I don't know.
I know. Yeah. So I was just.
Go ahead, Joe.
Go.
Yeah, you don't. For wrestling, that's a good point. When you bring in all the different sports, you can kind of isolate. It's kind of, a lot of them are tough, but wrestling, you're on top of each other unless you have like covered in plastic. I'm not kidding. They have like plastic suits or something. I'm not trying to be silly, but that's the only one way in a mask, and it seems wildly dangerous right now to even entertain that.
Yeah. So I was looking at the WIAA, and that's traditional winter sports highlighted by basketball and wrestling are set to begin practice on January 4th, and games will begin on January 10th. Of course, all this is super fluid. I mean, they're going to be making decisions based on whatever is happening on the ground with the virus, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if that changes 100%.
And they said, this is subject to change. Joe, what sports did you play in high school?
I played football and basketball. I mean, and so I don't know how they would, keep people safe with both those sports. I mean, you're right close to each other, and my heart goes out to all the high school athletes going back to last spring when the seniors lost their season. And now it looks like it could be at least losing part of their season, although they are going to be looking at maybe starting later on in the year. But there's no good way to solve this problem. And I know parents and kids want their sports back, but you got to make sure you can do it by keeping everyone safe. Because we heard the story that we ran at Sunrise with Tim Gordon with the Hood River Valley High School having a little bit of an outbreak. You got to be very cautious right now.
Yeah. That's right. Those kids were getting together to do some conditioning sessions, and then they came down with COVID. And we talked to one mom whose athlete was in that group, and she said now all 7 people in their family have coronavirus. Yeah,
so 5 student athletes, and then that family of 7, and probably more than that now have it. Joe, I mean, in your experience playing football, could you? And I mean, we'll find out, sooner with the NFL with this. Could you play with a mask on? And how would you?
You could.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess you could. They have visor type things for face masks to help you with the lights and stuff when you're out in the field. I'm not sure if they could come up with something like that goes over the complete face mask that covers your mouth, but still, you're still going to be tackling people and touching them as you bring them to the ground and what have you. I just don't get it, and I don't understand how. I know we're talking about high school sports, but how the NFL is still kind of going on with the status quo. Is we're going to continue as if the season's going to start, and I just don't think there's an easy way to stop that potential spread. I mean, I guess you could limit how many people are on the field. Maybe go from 11 players on the field at a time to maybe 8, but still.
That'd be crazy in and of itself. Yeah.
Exactly. I think people are going to have to reinvent the wheel a little bit in how sports are looked at. You still want to compete and keep it fair, but there's just a huge list of different things that could play a role. What about these top recruits that are looking on for college, or is their senior year going to be completely? It's going to be completely different, obviously, since we're considering suspending some of it, but it's going to be wild to see how the OSAA comes up with a plan to keep the students safe, and that's got to be paramount right now.
So people are weighing in. Monica says, great idea. I am all for the switch. Hopefully they review later and if necessary cancel contact sports altogether. Why put people at risk, she wants to know. She said there are more than just athletes to consider. Coaches are older. And she says her son is a sports media guy at a university, and they sit in teeny booths and trailers.
Yeah,
and
that's not going to happen.
She thinks that that's scary.
Yeah, they're going to have to move those people apart. We were just kind of talking about, like, you know, with wrestling, I mean, you're literally like in someone's face, touching all kinds of things. And we were talking about, like, could you wear a mask wrestling? You know, there's all that like rubbing of the heads and ears and everything. But can you, I know that's very stupid description of it.
Sentence construction.
But my point is, can you cancel? I don't know if there'd be like a legal argument of, can you have certain sports go on and other sports completely canceled? Is that an equity issue? I mean, you got Title IX, you know, so you've got like women's versus men's sports. Is that discriminated against certain ones? Like if you go through with the tennis and golf season, but you stop, you know, football and wrestling. I just wonder, in today's day and age, you know, what could happen legally with something like that, or what's in schools' charters.
You know, I bet you they also, if they start to bring in some of the sports going into, you know, the later part of the year, let's say football and the wrestling, I'm sure they're going to have to be tested, you know, as much as they can, making sure there's no symptoms, fever and stuff. Yeah, all the time before practice, maybe afterwards, because we know how quickly it spreads. It doesn't take long, and it doesn't take much for a small group to turn into hundreds and thousands of people getting it.
Yeah.
Right. Lori Martin is responding to the post we put up on Facebook, and she says, it's interesting to me how most of the responses here are around the fans. What about the students? Being that some of them didn't get to finish up their junior year, their senior year may be the only opportunity they have to solidify scholarships, and it might be the only way to get to go to college. Now, I agree that we need to be safe, but what happens to that?
Right.
There are going to be lives changed.
That's a
forever.
really, really good point. Yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, I mean, does your merit or your kind of like resume for that sport just go back to last time played? Which, you know, could be for freshmen or sophomores or something, and you could have gotten so much better over these years. I don't know, boy, this has changed just everything. But
oh, Jordan Ellis too. Here's something else to think about real quick. Says, I'm curious how this will affect the year-round sports kids, right? If playing high school volleyball is in the spring, what happens to the club season, which usually runs November to late spring, early summer? Do those kids try to do both? A travel team and a high school sport? That's so true. Kids play something all the time. Usually it's one sport all year long.
Freddie says no sports.
And Brenda,
go ahead, Joe.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I was just curious too, because, you know, some coaches don't allow you to play play multiple sports in one season. With some of them overlapping, let's say maybe football and basketball, are coaches going to be, okay, you can do both, or no, you have to make a decision. It's one or the other. Not only to keep the kids from getting hurt maybe in another sport, but also keeping them safe health-wise. And that's something to think about too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Desiree says not being able to do sports has devastated my daughter. Kids need this outlet.
Yeah, I just wonder, you know, like, you've got coaches and trainers and all that kind of stuff, like more, I guess littler kids are not, you know, as super spreaders as older kids, high school kids, and then of course adults. But yeah, you always have all of those adults surrounding those programs that are really vulnerable to that and have to, you know, stay later and touch things and make schedules and all kinds of stuff. We always think of, you know, all the students, of course, when we talk about schools, but there's so many staff members who are really vulnerable to this. So again, Governor Kate Brown going to be talking today at 11 a.m. about coronavirus. We don't know what really is on tap for her to say or if she's announcing anything. But by Friday, the state is going to be announcing decisions on at least fall sports, possibly the rest of the schedule. and a lot of people thinking they're going to kind of follow what Washington has done. California again went a little bit further and saying no sports until at least January, where they think that, I don't know, it's not like winter's going to be much better, right, Brenda?
No. Again, like I said, everything is fluid. I'm just trying to keep up with all the comments that are coming in today. Here's an interesting take. It's a little bit, off topic, but Joshua Madrid, good morning to you. We appreciate you joining the conversation. He says, what about the theater departments, the band programs, robotics clubs, etc.? Why only focus on the impact on sports when there are a myriad of non-athletic clubs that are also being affected by this pandemic? No, I totally get that, but we're focusing on this because we're just hearing this week from Washington, and we're also expecting by the end of the week, right, Nina, that Oregon is also going to reveal its plans about sports. So it's kind of a timing thing, not to minimize any of the other stuff that has to be canceled or put off because of COVID.
Yeah, there's so many other electives and things that kids are involved with. I would think band and that stuff is much easier to to physically distance out in a room, or you can practice in the gym where you can really spread out, but the sound, is maybe the same or something like that. What was the other thing? He said bands, robotics clubs. I think, distancing is just, and masks are, much easier to do versus wrestling or something like that.
Another
Miller.
point that should get brought
ahead.
up is the crowds. I mean, when high school football, Friday nights are, it's when all the parents and all the students come out to watch the students play. I wonder what the crowds will look like if they're only getting a limited amount of students at one time and the parents spread them out. But some of these, high school fields only have a certain amount. It's not like you can spread them out too much. I know a lot of them, the football fields are around a track, but what about basketball and wrestling when, you're kind of crammed in there? That's another thing that will be, I'm sure, looked at. I'm sure, I know it's not an easy task for folks with the OSAA to figure out, the next couple months, but that'll be kind of interesting when they do get sports going. What will the inside of those gyms look like?
And I think someone had brought up, how do the kids who are hoping for scholarships and stuff, because we're all in the same boat, literally in this country, I think, colleges are going to have to figure out different ways. Maybe you hold tryouts, or, scouts come and watch a training or a school practice and can kind of, they hear of a player that in whatever sport that might be interesting to them, and they can, hold private tryouts or regional, distance tryouts or something where just that player is down on the field or on the basketball court or something. There was some news for the Northwest Conference, which includes Pacific Lutheran, Whitman, Whitworth, Linfield College, George Fox, Pacific, Willamette, all that stuff. Our sister station in Seattle said last night that several credible sources say that they're going to move football, volleyball, and soccer to the spring as well. So it seems to be kind of gaining traction of switching those sports and doing more solo stuff this fall.
Jeff Lucas online, good morning. He's one of our regulars. He says they should train and practice, but I wouldn't trust to play other schools' students. So kind of keep it, in your own area. And then Rob St. Helen, good morning to you. He says, watch, this will be the year when we get 6 feet of snow too. Don't say that. Hold your tongue.
Now, wouldn't that be interesting, right? Not as many people commuting. But might as well just pile it on. What was the thing I read to you, Brenda, this morning that someone had typed? It was like, can you believe we all stayed up late on New Year's Eve to say Happy New Year for this?
You know what? Yeah, expletive. Yeah, that's pretty funny. B.N. Smith said they need to do what's best for the teams and coaches. Is it what we want? No, but we need to keep our youth safe.
Yeah.
I don't know. You guys have little ones, and my kids are older and out of school, but I was telling Nina, I'm so glad I don't have to make that decision, because I would really wrestle with that, because I'm sure that they were basketball and soccer players and a gymnast. My goodness, they would probably be chomping at the bit to be out there, and I don't know if I'd feel so great about that.
It's so hard. You can't make everyone happy at all in this situation. No. There's people that, even just in schools in general, that will not send their kids back to school no matter what yet. Then there are people that, they have to work, and and they have to have childcare of some kind, so they, have to send their kids back to school. They're, I'm sure, worried about it, and there are those people, who will have a choice. But yeah, you can't make everyone happy in this situation, so that has got to be tough for those decision makers for sure.
And I'm sure there's going to be some parents who are like, no, my kid's not going to be playing. I don't care if they, start the season later on in the spring or winter, whatever the case may be. I'm sure a lot of parents are just like, it's just not worth it for you to get sick and get your family members sick and grandparents sick. So there's just a lot to, I think people need to figure out and see how they. Some of the sports are just, let's just face it, impossible to keep them safe from being, on top of each other. Like we've talked a lot about football and wrestling, and it's just, there's just no good way, I think.
Yeah, wrestling just kind of boggles my mind for this time. But it is going to be interesting to see. Like we had on, Brenda, I know you were off last week, but we had the superintendent of Estacada School District on with us on Sunrise Extra, because they've really been, for such a small little district, they've actually been just killing it in the department of physical distancing, virtual learning. They were on it. When this first started, they got all the kids Chromebooks to work at home and figured out, little internet hotspots and got everyone going that way. And he was talking about just the day-to-day of kids may not be, how you switch from homeroom to then you walk down the hall and go to science, then you walk down the hall, go to math. He said, we may just have certain classes, that is your group, and you do not intermingle with these other classes, and you have the science teacher come in and come out and the math teacher, and there's not a lot of switching in hallways. So if you have that point of view at a school, but then you have the kids going and playing sports against other teams in the city, that messes it all up, So I think it's got to be one or the other for it to make sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they are reimagining things, and they have to. And, we've got a lot of dedicated people, coaches, teachers, all those folks are trying their best against almost insurmountable odds. I'm looking online here again. Stephen McDade is weighing in. He says, spring football. That will go over well with traditionalists. Spring in Portland is way colder than fall.
Well, I mean, it's a small price to pay.
Right.
I don't know. I think that's... The weather is, it's one thing, but I think it's safer all around to not. Who's talking to me? Director Brian. Okay. Thank you guys for weighing in. We appreciate it. Keep sending in your comments. Again, Governor Kate Brown is going to be talking live at 11 o'clock. We're going to stream that on all of our social pages and our website. We will, of course, let you know any news that she brings on that. And by Friday, the state's supposed to announce high school sports changes, and so you can always catch up on the latest with that on kgw.com. Bye, you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.